As the reach of technology has become more globalized and its evolution and expansion have exploded to become a normalized experience in our day-to-day life, its effects have transformed not only our environment but also our identity. The introduction of the automobile has created a need to construct highways and parking lots as an accommodation, and billboards have become an integrated decoration of our urban landscape. Smartphones and the internet have paved roads for instant and global communication, creating a fast-paced wireless working environment and imposing on our sense of self-identity as people become dependent on these tools of assimilation. But while most of our current generation that grew up with these technological advancements readily integrate themselves into their lives, most of the previous generation can't keep up with the necessary changes required to upgrade these systems or don't agree with the necessity of moving from current systems. This mindset is where most of the hesitancy towards adopting new technology, such as digital design, 3D printing, nanotechnology, sustainable construction, and other methods of building and research into architectural practices lie. In his article, Architecture and the Virtual, Towards a New Materiality, Antoine Picon points out an example. The current and next generation has seen and experienced the rise of video games, which is unique in that it has introduced a whole world of new interfaces and sensations which have already affected the motor skills and gestures of this particular generation. As a result, this current and next generation of architects would have developed the physical and mental experiences and attributes due to the fact that they have lived through the emergence of video gaming. Thus, their spatial interactions and expectations could possibly only be satisfied through digital-oriented design. In terms of architecture, the digitalization of the once traditional forms of representation are causing controversy in not only the credibility of these new devices, but also their morality, as their exposure grants us more political and social responsibility. Jonathan Hale, architect, associate professor, and reader in architectural theory, deconstructs this boundary between humans and technology, or what he refers to as concrete and abstract. In his article, Architecture, Technology, and the Body, From Pre-Human to the Post-Human, he refers back to prehistoric times when the first basic forms of technology were introduced, the hammer, the wheel, etc., and how it was perceived that a distance occurs between us and our surroundings whenever a new tool is introduced. But the relationship between humans and technology is actually paradoxical, because while we do separate ourselves from nature by constructing walls, driving in cars, and staring at screens for most of our lives, we also have to become dependent on technology in that it has actually become an extension of our own bodies, such as clothes, glasses, or in Merleau-Ponty's famous example of this concept, a blind person needing a cane to navigate. Technology is not only impacting the construction of our environment, but also the construction of our basic sense of self. In the technologically advanced environment that we live in today, we have been granted a great deal of power. However, there lies a void of vulnerability, especially between the acceleration of speed and automobiles, for instance. In James Graham Ballard's novel Crash, he discusses the current state of the human body and its mechanical extension in today's context. Though this could provide a great deal of benefit to society, their empowerment comes with a cloud of vulnerability. This suggests that though technology can enhance the lives of those who intend to use it, their bodies will always be on the verge of being injured due to the severity of consequences of using technology. In architectural terms, this translates to the progressive distancing of an architect as the designer from actual construction process. According to Picon, digitalization allows the architect to manipulate complex forms and have a greater level of control over design modifications. However, on the other hand, he argues whether the change of digitalization brings is qualitative or quantitative. Even though brick or stone may be seen as raw material, it has actually been processed and refined in some way from its completely natural form to be used for construction and are actually technological objects. This distancing can be obvious in certain projects such as the Millennium Bridge in London, which was first designed as an innovative steel suspension bridge for pedestrian crossing the River Thames, where the supporting cables were housed below deck level to give it a very shallow profile. This blade of light effect caused a positive feedback phenomenon known as synchronous lateral excitation, where the natural sway of motion of people walking caused the bridge to vibrate and oscillate. In the case of the Millennium Bridge, the designers did not consider the physical effects of the environment when technologically designing the bridge. Picon also discusses another backset of the digitalization of architecture as the new computer design programs are being introduced. He poses that these technologies separate the architecture from its materiality, as only textures and dimensions are lost to being mere lines and planes. But also the environment completely disappears, and the digital design becomes an abstract construction floating in a technological void of space. While this is true, it doesn't change the fact that traditional forms of representation, such as drafting of the plan, elevation, and section, were also abstract and unrealistic in their own ways, as one is unable to experience a building fully through just these means. The technological ability of creating three-dimensional design that can be viewed and navigated through creates a much more realistic image. This creates a controversial relationship that the architect has with technology, because the current stage of media is still in its infancy and maturing. Thus, it does not have the ability to accurately portray an architectural structure. But as it advances and evolves, it could definitely reach the point where this type of representation could surpass the traditional methods of drafting and drawing, so the architect will need to invest in this digitalization before the extraordinary potential of it could be realized. For instance, the City of Manchester's stadium in Manchester, England, is known for its iconic roof design. The roof is held together by a tension system, which is considered groundbreaking innovation by New Steel Construction magazine. Moreover, the roof has been designed to maximize the level of sunlight that could enter the stadium by using a 10-meter band of translucent polycarbonate at its periphery in order to obtain the optimum condition and quality of the grass to play over. Another example of innovative architectural technology is the Yokohama Port Terminal, with its striking appearance of complex curving surfaces that would not have been possible without tremendous advances in computer-aided design. Thus, it is evident that the pursuit of technology in architectural practice can grant the architect a broader sense of freedom to enhance the quality of the building. However, as with most new technologies, this digitalization bestows a form of power and evokes a moral responsibility for the architect. The generalization of the design process that this digitalization generates produces consequences, because the world and the environment appears to be more and more a product of our own creation. This mindset requires a political responsibility, as the architect must consider the environment, the period of construction, and sustainable development when designing a new architectural structure. In conclusion, newly developing technology, when used appropriately, is not necessarily a bad thing. Just like anything else we develop, technology is just another tool to help us achieve our goals in a faster, more efficient manner. In architecture, technology available to us in the digitalization of the design process impedes on this because, although more efficient, it abstracts the final product and therefore cannot accurately depict it in ways different or better than traditional forms of representation. Because of this, more advanced systems of technology must be developed in order to bridge this gap between the concrete and abstract and produce a more realistic representation of architecture. This may also invoke a new understanding and reconstruction of the notion of materiality, as computerization is reshaping our physical experience with the built environment. Most importantly, the digitalization of the design process completely changes the outlook the architect has on the environment, and therefore unearths a new set of moral responsibilities the architect must have for their environment. Just because the architect has the power to build doesn't mean they should. As technology advances, questions of environmental impact must arise and sustainable development must be utilized. Architects must regulate and mediate themselves and take responsibility for the power that this new technological architecture has given them.